Happy St. Patrick's Day. Today is the day where hopefully we all find some luck. I feel lucky to be here today. I am thankful for all of you that have joined in, whether you're live or watching on a playback. Your comments are on my screen. Please let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you're an installer, if you're a designer, if you're a distributor. I want to hear from you. Today's topic is kind of off the wall, but it came to me via our customer service about tile thicknesses. So before we jump into that, I want to say a couple of thank yous and let you know who in the world I am. If you don't know who I am, my name is Craig, and I am the technical director for Tile Bar, and Tile Bar is sponsoring this learning event. It is our goal to be the most knowledgeable in the market and to help anyone who asks questions about the tile, stone, LVT, flooring industry, that we can serve them. So thanks, Tile Bar, for sponsoring this learning event. I hope you have a sandwich. I don't know if it's too early for green beer, but it is St. Patrick's Day, and today we're going to learn a little bit about tile thicknesses. And once again, if you have comments or questions, I can see them live. I'm running all this here with my battle station, and this is my first time doing it by myself, but as I always say, we're learning together. And let's try to serve each other by advancing what we know. So we're not going to waste any more time. Thanks again, Tile Bar, for sponsoring the event. And I want to get right into the subject. And I've got a handout, PowerPoint, slide deck, whatever you want to call it, that I'll be bringing in and referring to every now and then. And what I wanted to start with was, tiles are different thicknesses for different reasons. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's not intentional. When Amy brought this to my attention, that we had a series in our catalog that had done some manufacturing upgrades, and the tiles were a different thickness. Now, the good thing about that situation is that because they switched out some stuff, they were trying to make an exact copy of one to another. And that would be for sizing, color, and thickness. We're not going to talk about sizing and color today. We're just going to talk about thickness. So when you're trying to match something, the differences are not going to be that great. So if you know what a replica is or a model is, you want it to be exact. You want it to be right there. So the differences between maybe a factory change or a equipment change, those differences are going to be negligible, less than a millimeter. If you don't know what a millimeter is, I know there's a coin shortage, but a dime is roughly a millimeter, a 32nd of an inch. Now, the good thing about a 32nd of an inch, you can make that up in a lot of different ways. It is not that much, and especially when you have a tile that's a centimeter or, larger, 1 millimeter, and trying to make that up, you can do that with a couple of different tricks that are mentioned down here. You can just simply put some extra patch on the floor or on the wall, and it'll build it out. But I tell you, the easiest way to do that in today's society or today's installation program is using a leveling spacer. There's many of them out there, and they will bridge that 1 millimeter gap relatively easy. You'll get your tiles, and your tiles will be off a little bit, and that 1 millimeter gap, you can flatten it, and it'll the thin set below the tile will fill in, and once it all sets, it's going to be strong as anything you want. And then you have a flat surface across the thinner tile and the thicker tile. Now, I presented all of this information to our team yesterday. They get a prequel of it. They're my testing guinea pigs, if you will. And what happens if you're installing a tile and you finish your installation and you have a repair and the tile you're trying to repair with is thicker than the tile you've installed. Now then a millimeter difference may make maybe have some issues. So you may have to take out more tile than what you actually put in and kind of feather it and ramp it. I like using my hands and ramp it so that it can all be together. If you've got a really large difference, which we'll talk about in a minute, that may be really difficult where you have to actually take out some floor. But the key is when you're specifying or you're designing, if you know you have a project that's really large, I ran into this a lot in the commercial industry, whether it's a multifamily building or possibly a dorm complex on a campus, sometimes those can bridge different lots of material. And as a contractor, we made a lot of effort in trying to get the same lots, but because of the size of the project, it wasn't possible. And so then you had to divide your lots out. This building gets lot whatever, XYZ, and this building gets lot A, B, C. Now, that works fine and dandy while you're doing the project, but then when you have to go back and repair, you have to make sure you have those documented lots to repair each different area. So just a note to you designers and to your contractors, make sure you know what lots you're getting. Make sure you know the differences between the lots, and then also document that so you can do your repairs with the respective lots. If that's not possible, say you ran out of material unexpectedly, you couldn't plan on it, then you can use the possibly doing a different wall, a different floor, those different areas where you break it up naturally through the project or through the room will help you. Because when you're tiling one wall and then an adjacent wall, you really can't tell that there's a different thickness. This all is when you're talking about a tile that has a very minimal thickness difference. And it's also talking about when you can plan for it. But if you can't plan for it and you have 1,000 square feet and you got one tile in the middle and you don't have any tiles left and that tile is thicker than the other ones, then you're going to have to do use some elbow grease or to get out that extra material so that your tile sits flat. But for the majority of us, we plan well. I know we do. And we always order waste. We always specify waste. And then we don't have those issues. We have the tiles we need to make those repairs. Well, Craig, that's great. But what about when I want to use two different tiles? Great question. Happens all the time. My suggestion for you is please don't try to use a checkerboard pattern with two different series of tiles. I know it may look great on paper, but sometimes it's not buildable. I used to use that a lot. Can I build that what is drawn? And sometimes the answer is no. And I know anything's possible in today's world, but when you have two different tiles made in two different factories, using those tiles together in a pattern is not advantageous. It causes a lot of issues, and odds are it's going to be really difficult to make it look really good. So you want to try to keep patterns in the same series. Well, what about accents and waterfalls and accent bands and rugs in the floor? We have a solution for you. What I used to always tell my team was install the thicker tile first because it's easier to work up than it is to work down. If you have two tiles, let's just say you've got an entry of a building and it is all 24 by 24 tile that is roughly a centimeter thick. And you want to do a lovely mosaic glass, fancy water jet pattern at the entry with your logo on it. Odds are that logo tile is going to be a different thickness. So there's a couple different ways that you can build up that thickness, and have it flush out, because that's what you want, especially in a floor. You don't ever want to have any jump in height that's greater than 1/16 of an inch, because then you've got a liability issue. So there's a couple different ways to do it. As we said before, you install your thicker tile first, and then you have your area where your rug logo is going to go. And then you figure out what the difference is. Say the difference is 2 centimeters. 3 centimeters, let's use that because it's roughly 1/8 of an inch. You've got a 3 centimeter difference in your accent rug tile and your thicker tile. So therefore, you need to build that floor up. There's a few different ways you can do that. Depending on how large an area will depend on how much effort you want to put into that. You could pour a self-leveling 1/8 of an inch thick, then set your tile, it flushes out perfectly. You could use an uncoupling membrane, which there's a couple different ones out there. That one shown on the screen is Laticrete Stratamat, and that is roughly 1/8 of an inch thick. Install that just as you would, put it down, and then you'd have to, if it's a mosaic, you'd have to self-level it again and flash it off. Or if you've got a larger tile, you make sure you always read the directions. Then you can use that over it. It builds it up that little bit. If you have something a little less than that, you see in the picture, there's Sluter's Curdy, which is, I'm not sure the actual thickness of it, but it builds it up a little bit. So there's a couple different tricks that you can use to get your tile to the right height so that you have a flat floor or a flat wall. Those same instances, barring the self-leveling, you can do it on a wall. If you install, for instance, your shower, it's very popular now to have waterfall, and your waterfall will be a different thickness. Then you can do the Curdy or the uncoupling membrane to space that out. Another way of doing that is using a design element that takes the drasticness away of the thickness difference. For instance, adding a liner or a threshold. I'm going to switch the slides here. We'll go back to that in a minute. You'll see we got a liner here. So you have a thick wall tile. You add that liner that's got finished bull nose all the way around, and it transitions you into your thinner tile. That thinner tile is then installed, and you don't notice the difference in the thickness because there's a design element that does that. Now on the floor, if you're transitioning from one room to another, transition, and maybe in one area you've got a thicker tile in the other area, like down in the corner here, you can use a threshold. This threshold gives you a natural break to where you can bridge the different thicknesses of tile. And those different thicknesses, it's not noticeable because you have a threshold that's made as a transition piece. It breaks it up with your eye, and then also how you use that, you don't notice it underfoot. You still have to take in consideration ADA rules and all those things, which you contractors know well. But if that is designed this way, then you know to kind of keep an eye out for those questions. And what happens when you don't use this technique? You see on the screen here, if I've seen some installers try to just feather out the mosaics with mortar and thin set. When you try to feather that out and there's nothing hard to set it with, you run the risk of either not having good mortar transfer to your accent, or you also run the risk of having it wavy because it's not, you can't push it in consistently because then it'll dip in and your mortar comes through the mosaic and you create a mess. If you see in some of these pictures here, there's mortar everywhere. It looks terrible. Even in the bottom left-hand corner, that mosaic, you can't really see it, but it's so wavy because it started here and it would go in and dip in and come out, and then it flushed out at the bottom. And it looks terrible. And these are just some ways that installers that may not know what they're doing or looking for a shortcut are trying to make these tile thicknesses work out. One of the other one is you see where there's a lip in that the middle picture, and the grout is just piled up there because this lippage, the grout is getting caught in the lippage and it's extending all the way through that, and it looks horrible. But if you see on the far left-hand corner and or the far left-hand side of the picture, you can see where installers have done it right. I have this video that one of the guys that I follow on TikTok that I enjoy, he does a great job. His name's Blaine. He's out of Colorado, and he goes through the process of using this technique to do an accent band. And I thought it was pretty interesting how to show this. So I'm gonna pull that in and get your questions ready. Heather, I saw you. I want to answer your question in a minute. And let me know what else is happening. So take a look at Blaine, how he did his build out for making it flush. Blaine knew that his accent tile was about 3/16 skinnier than his field tile. So he had some Sluter Ditra, which he cut down to match the accent band. Installed that first. That way, when he installed his accent band, it was flush to the field tile and giving it a full substrate behind it so there's no waviness and no thin set push through, which gives him a flat surface tile to tile across the accent. It's amazing what you can learn on TikTok. You know, Blaine, I've been following him for a while. He does some great installations. And when I was preparing this, he actually posted it, and I reached out to him, asking if I could share it. And I thought it was just a good representation of how a tile installer was thinking ahead, and he was preparing for that difference that he either saw in the drawings or he saw once he pulled out the tiles. Does that make sense? Seeing it that way, does that help? I hope so. Heather, you want to know where I got those incredible fails for? I've said this before. Fails tend to find me. I get emails all the time. Craig, take a look at this. Craig, I was in the airport and I saw this. I just had to send it to you. I love those. I love getting those because that gives me, if you're seeing it out there in the wild, you know, if you're in the airport and RDU airport, you know what I'm talking about. The old school bathrooms there. Send me those because that is a great teaching tool for me because people are out there installing bad stuff. And luckily at RDU, they replaced that horrible tile that they had on the wet walls that was so stained, but that's been done. But when you see those, bring them to me. They find me, Heather. And my wife hates it when we go anywhere because I've got to go to the bathroom. And a lot of times I don't have to go to the bathroom, but I bring my phone in there and I'm taking pictures and videoing. It gets really weird when there's other people in there. But I try not to do that, or at least be incognito because I'm taking a picture of the wall, not anything else. I know it looks weird, but it's not. I'm not that weird. But these things kind of find me. But the thickness differences are something that as a contractor, it would be surprising when I would get to a job site. And I've been looking at the drawings for weeks or months even, and ordering the tiles. And until I got the samples, I didn't know how they worked together. But then once I figured out I had an issue, then I had to come up with a plan of how to put that issue to my installer so that they didn't get frustrated in the field. And that's what bringing it to the attention here is saying, hey, think about it ahead of time. If you're a designer and you're choosing things that are from different pages and from different series. Think about the thickness and how they work together. If you're a contractor like I was and you get samples in and you're comparing those samples and you know that you got two tiles that are supposed to work together in the same system, raise a red flag then. It's a whole lot better to raise it then than it is to get to these poor installations because a guy had to make a decision on the fly quickly. He has to be done tomorrow. He's got to grout it. That's when poor decisions are made. So it's all in the pre-planning. If you can avoid different thicknesses, try to. But sometimes I know you cannot. So I want us to prepare as much as we can for the future. I will say, if you want a hard copy of this presentation, send me an email. I'd love to send it to you. I'd love to get your questions. For those of you who are watching in the replay, let me know how I can help you, because that's what I'm here for. I thank you for joining you, all those that were here. Got a couple of questions and a couple of comments about where to buy the best tile. Of course, tilebar.com. Thanks, Tilebar, for sponsoring this learning event. It's for anybody. We want there to be good installations out there. It looks good on the entire industry. And I hope that you tune in. We have, just to plug this afternoon, we have a Tilebar Happy Hour podcast. At 4 o'clock, we're going to talk about LVT. There may be green beer involved. I cannot confirm, but I hope you'll join us then. And in the meantime, I want us all to continue to learn together. Send me those fails. I love seeing them. My email address is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you're interested in a hard copy of this document, let me know. And continue to work hard, and let's tile the world. And I didn't plan on what to do at the end. But hey,